G'day, Phil Badura here from ActionCOACH Business Steps. Let me ask you a very simple question. If you disappeared from your business for 2 weeks, would the work keep moving? Would your customers still have a consistent experience? And would your team know what to do without ringing every 5 minutes? For a lot of business owners, the honest answer is no. And that's not because they don't care. It's not because their team is lazy. It's not because the business has no potential. It's usually because the business has outgrown the way it currently operates. What worked when there were 3 people in the business doesn't work when there are 10. What worked when the business or the owner personally checked every job, every quote, every invoice, every customer issue, and every team decision doesn't work when the business is trying to scale. At some point, the owner becomes the bottleneck. And here's the real danger. When the owner is the system, the business can't grow beyond the owner's personal capacity. That's why today I want to talk about one of the most important scaling principles for any business builder. Systems create consistency, people create results. And if you want sustainable growth, you need both. Systems without people become rigid, cold, and frustrating. People without systems become inconsistent, reactive, and overwhelmed. But when you align the two together, your business starts to move from chaos to control. Here's what I see all the time when I'm working with business owners. The business starts with energy, urgency, and hustle. The owner says yes to everything. They solve every problem, make every decision, they keep the customer happy, they jump in when the job goes sideways, chase the invoices, remind the team, and they fix the mistakes and they answer the late night messages. And in the early days, that works because the owner's effort hides the lack of systems. But as the business grows, cracks start to show. Jobs get missed. Quotes are delayed. Customers get different answers depending on who they speak to. Team members start making their own version of the process. Managers become firefighters, and the owner is dragged back into the day-to-day. And everyone is busy, but not everyone is productive. That's the point where a business owner has to stop and ask these questions. Are we growing a business or are we growing complexity? Because growth without systems doesn't become freedom, it becomes more pressure, more people, more questions, more mistakes, more rework, more customer issues, more stress, and more owner dependency. That's why systematization is not about paperwork. It's about building a business that can perform consistently without relying on one person or one person's memory, personality, or heroic effort. A business that scales needs rhythm, standards, clarity, and accountability. And it needs people who understand not only what to do, but why it matters. One of the most powerful phrases I teach business owners is this: systematize the routine, humanize the exceptions. Now let's break that down. First, systematize the routine. Every business has routine work. In a trades business, it might be quoting, scheduling, job handover, materials ordering, site checklists, invoicing, and customer follow-up. In a manufacturing business, it might be production planning, quality checks, stock management, machine maintenance, dispatch, and reporting. In a service business, it might be lead response, booking calls, onboarding clients, delivering the service, checking satisfaction, and asking for referrals. These things should not be reinvented every week. They should not depend on who happens to be working that day and should not rely on the owner remembering to check. Routine work needs routine systems. That means the steps are clear, the owner is the task is clear, the standard is clear, the time frame is clear, the measurement is clear, and the review rhythm is also clear. Because when routine work is not systematized, the team has to guess, and guessing is expensive. Guessing creates rework, it creates customer frustration. Guessing creates internal blame, and it creates inconsistent outcomes. So when I'm working with clients, one of the first things we look at is this. What are the repeatable tasks that happen every day, every week, every month? Then we ask, can it be documented? Can it be simplified? Can this be delegated? Can this be measured? And can it be improved? Because a system is not just a procedure sitting in a folder. A real system is something your people actually use. It helps them do the right thing in the right order to the right standard without needing to stop and ask the owner every time. That is how you start freeing up time, how you start building consistency, and that is how the business begins to rely less on memory and more on method. Humanize the exceptions. Now, here's where many businesses get it wrong. They think systemizing means removing human judgment. It doesn't. A good system should handle the routine so your people have more time, energy, and awareness to handle the exceptions properly, because not everything fits neatly into a checklist. Sometimes a customer is upset. Sometimes a job changes halfway through. Sometimes a supplier lets you down. Sometimes a team member is struggling. Sometimes the numbers don't tell the whole story. And sometimes the right answer is not just process, it's leadership. That's why we humanize the exceptions. Humanizing the exceptions means your team knows when to follow the system and when to escalate. It means they understand the difference between a normal variation and a genuine issue. It means they are trained to use judgment, empathy, and ownership. It means your business has values, not just procedures. For example, a customer complaint should have a process. Absolutely. Who receives it? Where's it logged? How quickly do we respond? Who owns the follow-up? And what authority does the team member have to resolve it? But the conversation itself, I'll say that again. When the conversation itself still needs to be human, the customer doesn't want to feel like they're being processed through a machine. They want to feel heard. They want to know that someone cares, and they want confidence that the issue will be fixed. So the system gives the team structure. The person brings care, judgment, and accountability. That's the balance. Remember, systems create consistency, people create results, and the owner's job is to build both. So the key traits that business owners must adopt. To scale a business sustainably, owners and managers need to develop certain traits. Now, the first trait is clarity. Your team cannot follow what has not been made clear. If the standard only exists in your head, it's not a standard, it's a hope. The second is discipline. Systems only work when they're followed consistently. If the owner allows people to constantly work around the system loses authority. And when you lose authority, that's when mistakes occur. The third is ownership. Every system needs an owner, not the business owner, a process owner. Someone responsible for keeping it updated, checking it is followed, and improving it over time. The fourth trait in systems is training. You can't just hand someone an SOP and expect performance. People need to be shown, coached, observed, and supported until the process becomes part of the culture. The fifth trait is measurement. When you measure, you master. If you want consistency, you need to track whether the system is working. For example, are quotes going out on time? Are jobs being completed to standard? Are customers being followed up? Are invoices being sent promptly? That's a big one, promptly. Are team members using the checklist? And are mistakes reducing? Without measurement, you're relying on feelings. The sixth trait is continuous improvement. A system should not become a prism. It should become a platform. When the team finds a better way, capture it. When a mistake happens, don't just blame the person, look at the system. Was the process unclear? Was the training incomplete? Was the handover weak? Was the responsibility vague? And was the standard missing? That's how mature businesses think. They don't just ask who stuffed up. They ask what part of the system allowed this to happen and how do we improve it so that it doesn't happen again. That's the mindset shift that takes a business from reactive to scalable. Now, let's talk about where the owner's attention, focus, and energy need to go. Because if you're serious about scaling, your job is not to be the best firefighter in the business. Your job is to reduce the number of fires. That means your attention should go to recurring problems, not just solve the issue that's in front of you. Look for the pattern behind it. Dig in for the root cause. If customers keep asking the same question, you don't have a customer problem, you have a communication system problem. If jobs keep running over time, you don't just have a productivity problem, you may have a quoting, scheduling, or scope control problem. If team members keep interrupting you with the same decisions, you may not have a people problem, you may have a decision rights problem. Your focus should go to the systems that unlock capacity. So ask yourself these questions. Which system, if improved, would save the most amount of time? Another question might be, which system would reduce the most rework? Which system would improve customer experience fastest? Another one, which system would remove the owner as the bottleneck? And another one might be, which system would help the team take more ownership? And your energy should go to implementation, not just talking about systems, not just planning systems, actually building them, testing them, training the team, reviewing the results, and improving them. That's where many business owners fall down. They know what they need or what needs to change, but they don't create the rhythm to make the change stick. This is where a 90-day action plan becomes powerful. Pick the systems that matter the most. Don't try to fix everything at once. Choose one or two high-impact areas. Create the process, assign the ownership, train the team, track the numbers, review weekly, and improve monthly. That's how momentum is created, not through one big motivational speech, through consistent, focused action. Let me give you a couple of examples of how this shows up with clients. I work with a business owner who was constantly frustrated that his team kept asking him the same operational questions. At first, he thought the team lacked initiative. But when we dug deeper, we found the real issue. There was no clear decision-making system. The team didn't know what they could decide, what needed approval, what the spending limits were, what customer issues they could resolve, or when something needed to be escalated. So we created a simple decision rights framework, and we followed the green, amber, red process. So green decisions, team members could make them without approval. Amber decisions, they needed to check with a manager. And then red decisions, they needed owner approval. Within a few weeks, the interruptions reduced, the team felt more trusted, and the owner started getting time back to work on growth rather than be dragged into every small decision. That's systematizing the routine and humanizing the exceptions. In another client style example, a business was struggling with inconsistent customer follow-up. Some customers got called after a job, some didn't. Some received a thank you message, some didn't. Some were asked for feedback and some were forgotten. The team was busy, but the experience was inconsistent. So we mapped the customer journey. We created a simple post-job follow-up system. Day 1, completion message. Day 2, satisfaction check. Day 7, review request. And day 30, value add follow-up. Nothing complicated, but once it was assigned, tracked, and reviewed, the business became more consistent, customers felt more cared for, and the team had a clearer rhythm. The system created consistency, the people created the relationship. That is the point. You don't systematize to routine or to remove the human touch. You systematize to protect it. So here's the question I want to leave you with. Where is your business still relying on memory habit and heroic effort? Where are your people doing their best but operating without enough structure? Where are you blaming people for problems that are really system problems? And where are you, as the owner, still sitting in the middle of decisions that your business should be able to handle without you? Because sustainable growth doesn't come from working harder forever. It comes from building a business that works better. Systems create consistency, people create results, and leadership aligns both. When you systematize the routine and humanize the exceptions, you create a business where the team knows what to do, customers receive a consistent experience, and the owner finally gets to the space to lead. That's how you move from chaos to control. That's how you build a business that can grow without burning people out. And that's how you start turning business dreams into reality. If this message has hit home for you, then now is the time to take action. Book a meeting with me, Phil Badura at Action Coach Business Steps. Let's identify where the gaps are, where the chaos is costing you time, energy, and money, and which systems will give you the fastest path back to control, consistency, and sustainable growth. Take action, get results.